Have you ever felt lonely and lost when you realized you had few friends? Society tells us that isolation equals loneliness, that withdrawing from friends means depression or decline. But what if I told you that some of history's wisest minds reached a profound realization that after a certain age, particularly after 70, the need for constant social connection naturally diminishes? And more importantly, that this isn't something to fear or resist, but rather a precious gift to embrace? You should embrace the message the ancient Stoics understood centuries ago, that there comes a point in our lives when we no longer need friends in the way we once did. Not because we have become antisocial or bitter, but because we have evolved into something much more wonderful. The truth about the later stages of life is counterintuitive and rarely discussed. But understanding it could free you from unnecessary guilt and open the door to the most authentic, peaceful, and fulfilled period of your existence. Welcome, I'm Vernon, and today we'll explore 7 profound reasons why after 70 you don't need more friends. It's a sign of wisdom and evolutionary progress. These insights aren't based on modern psychology alone, but on ancient wisdom that has guided humanity for thousands of years. From the Stoic philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, to the contemplative traditions of the East, there exists a timeless understanding about the journey of aging that our youth-obsessed culture has forgotten. I remember when I turned 67, I started declining more social invitations. My daughter Sarah was concerned, asking if I was depressed or lonely. But inside, I felt more at peace than ever before. It wasn't until I encountered the writings of Seneca that I realized what was happening was not just normal, it was profound. Pay special attention to reason number 4, as it reveals a transformative perspective that could change how you view your advancing years entirely. Before we begin, remember that what I'm about to share may challenge conventional thinking. If you find yourself nodding in agreement with these insights, please subscribe my channel and share this video to help others find this liberating message. Let's begin our exploration of the first reason. The first reason you don't need more friends is your energy becomes too valuable to waste on shallow connections. After 7 decades of life, you become acutely aware of something the young cannot fully comprehend: the finite nature of your energy. Each day brings a limited reserve of vitality, attention, and emotional capacity. In our earlier years, we often squander this precious resource on social obligations that bring little meaningful return. We attend gatherings out of duty, maintain relationships out of habit, and engage in conversations that deplete rather than enrich us. My friend Richard, a retired professor now 71, described his awakening perfectly. At 50, he'd drag himself to faculty parties even when exhausted, afraid of appearing antisocial. At 70, he realized his remaining energy is far too valuable to spend on encounters that don't genuinely nourish his soul. This isn't selfishness, it's wisdom. When you understand that your energy is not infinite but sacred, you naturally become more selective about where you direct it. This selectivity isn't a withdrawal from life, but rather a way to honor the precious time you have remaining. Consider the traditional energy budget in social settings. At a typical gathering, you might spend hours navigating small talk, managing impressions, and processing the emotional dynamics of multiple relationships simultaneously. This complex social computation requires tremendous cognitive and emotional resources. A fascinating study from the Harvard Aging Brain Study revealed that as we age, our brains actually become more efficient at certain types of processing, while consciously redirecting energy away from activities with diminishing returns. What younger people might view as social withdrawal is often the wisdom of an efficiently operating mind. Ask yourself, How much of your social engagement truly enriches your life? And how much is merely habitual or obligatory? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment. By age 70, you've encountered countless obstacles, detours, and unexpected turns. These experiences haven't just taught you resilience, they've clarified what genuinely matters in life. The wisdom of age reveals that many social connections we once prioritized were based on superficial commonalities. Career ambitions, parenting young children, or maintaining social status. As these phases pass, so too does the foundation for many of these relationships. This natural evolution isn't a tragedy, but a liberation. You now recognize the profound difference between being surrounded by people and being truly connected. Eleanor, at 82, told me something I'll never forget. In her 30s, she judged her life success by the size of her social circle. In her 80s, she measured it by the depth of her peace. She only has 3 true friends now instead of 30 connections, and she's never felt richer. After 70, your priorities naturally shift from quantity to quality, from acquisition to meaning, from doing to being. This shift applies not just to possessions, but to relationships as well. I witnessed this transformation in my own father. At 55, he maintained a bustling social calendar and measured his worth by his network. By 75, he had distilled his connections to just a handful of people who truly resonated with his evolved values. He finally stopped trying to be interesting to others, he told me, and started being interested in what truly matters. This clarity often surprises people in their 7th and 8th decades. What once seemed vital, social approval, constant engagement, being in the know, suddenly reveals itself as surprisingly empty. Meanwhile, experiences once taken for granted, a quiet morning with a book, the dance of light through leaves, a moment of deep understanding with a grandchild, become inexplicably meaningful. The third reason you don't need more friends is the liberation from social expectation. For most of our lives, we remain entangled in an invisible web of social expectations. We carefully manage our image, monitor our words, and adjust our behaviors to maintain approval and avoid judgment. This constant performance is exhausting, even when we've grown so accustomed to it that we no longer notice its weight. After 70, a remarkable transformation occurs. The opinions of others begin to lose their grip. Not because you've become inconsiderate, but because you've gained perspective on what philosopher Epictetus called things within our control and things beyond our control. My neighbor Charles, now 84, laughed as he told me, at 50, he'd spend a week worrying about an awkward comment he made at a dinner party. At 80, he realized no one was thinking about it but him. This freedom from social anxiety isn't a license for rudeness, but rather an opportunity for authenticity. When you no longer feel compelled to impress, entertain, or please others, you can engage from a place of genuine interest rather than social obligation. The paradox is beautiful. In caring less about being liked, you become more likable. In worrying less about being judged, you become less judgmental. In freeing yourself from the prison of others' opinions, you can finally offer them your true self, the greatest gift of all. Consider the toll that social conformity takes over decades. Research from sociologists at the University of California found that the average person spends approximately 17 years of their life worrying about what others think of them. I experienced this liberation myself when I turned 62. After decades in corporate life where I carefully managed my image, I suddenly found myself speaking truths I'd long held back, not with anger or rebellion, but with a gentle certainty that no longer required validation. My daughter remarked that I seemed more myself than she'd ever known me to be. How much of your social interaction is still driven by should rather than genuine desire? Share your thoughts in the comment. The fourth reason, a special one that I think you've been waiting to hear, offers a new perspective on the loneliness of old age. Instead of being afraid and constantly seeking out with anyone you think will make you happier, discover the sacred power of solitude. There exists a profound distinction between loneliness and solitude. One depletes, while the other nourishes. Loneliness is the painful awareness of absence. Solitude is the peaceful awareness of presence, your own presence, fully experienced perhaps for the first time. After decades of external focus, building careers, raising families, maintaining social networks, the gift of later life is the invitation to turn inward. This journey isn't a retreat from the world, but rather a deeper way of engaging with it. Margaret, a widow of 77, shared that after her husband passed, everyone worried about her being alone. What they couldn't understand was that in that solitude, she finally met herself. She discovered thoughts, interests, and abilities that had been dormant for years while she was busy being someone's wife, mother, colleague, and friend. In embracing solitude after 70, you're not abandoning connection, but rather establishing the most important connection of all, the one with yourself. This is the foundation from which authentic relationships with others can actually flourish. Neuroscience now confirms what contemplative traditions have taught for millennia, that periods of solitude activate the brain's default mode network, essential for processing memories, developing self-awareness, and finding meaning in experience. In our hyper-connected world, few people ever allow this network to function optimally. I was fascinated to learn about the traditional practice in many indigenous cultures of honoring elders' increasing desire for solitude. Among certain Native American tribes, elders were provided with private spaces specifically for contemplation, and their periodic withdrawal from community activities was seen not as concerning but as sacred. The elder was understood to be doing important spiritual work that would ultimately benefit the entire community. My own experience with embracing solitude came gradually. At first, I felt guilty for declining invitations or spending days without speaking to anyone. But I began to notice that after these periods of quiet contemplation, I returned to interactions with greater patience, wisdom, and genuine interest. The quality of my connections improved as their quantity decreased. Throughout much of life, our authentic voice becomes layered beneath social conditioning, professional requirements, and relationship compromises. We learn to speak in the language of our culture, our workplace, our family, sometimes forgetting our native tongue, the unique expression of our true nature. After 70, there arises a natural desire to shed these accumulated layers and rediscover your genuine voice. This isn't regression or selfishness. It's integration and honesty. Howard, a retired businessman now 81, described his experience. For 40 years in corporate life, he calibrated every word to achieve specific outcomes. Now, he speaks only what he believes to be true. It's not that he is trying to be difficult. He simply doesn't have the energy or desire to pretend anymore. This authenticity may mean fewer social engagements, as you become less willing to participate in conversations that feel hollow or interactions that require a social mask. But the connections that remain become infinitely more meaningful. There is profound dignity in speaking your truth quietly and clearly in your later years, not with the rebellion of adolescence, but with the earned wisdom of a life fully lived. Your authentic voice becomes your legacy, far more valuable than any wealth or achievement you might leave behind. I don't need a friend who changes when I change and who nods when I nod. My shadow does that much better, wrote Plutarch nearly 2,000 years ago. After 70, you develop what might be called relationship discernment, is the ability to distinguish between connections that energize and those that deplete. This isn't about becoming antisocial, but about becoming wisely selective. The friendships that remain or form during this period tend to have specific qualities. They're low in drama, rich in understanding, comfortable with silence, respectful of boundaries, and accepting of your authentic self. My own experience reflects this evolution. At 75, I maintain deep connections with just 5 people outside my immediate family. These relationships don't demand constant attention or regular scheduled meetings. They exist in a realm of mutual understanding that transcends conventional social expectations. Evelyn, at 86, describes her closest friend of 40 years. They might not speak for months, but when they do, they pick up exactly where we left off. There's no guilt, no obligation, just the joy of connection when it happens naturally. That's what friendship should be at this age. This natural pruning of your social circle isn't isolation, it's curation. You're not abandoning friendship. You're elevating it to something more essential and meaningful. If you agree with this insight that we should connect and maintain relationships that make us better, please take a moment to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. After 70, something remarkable happens to our perception of time, something that few younger people can comprehend, and that fundamentally alters our need for constant social engagement. Dr. Elizabeth, a retired psychology professor, now 84, described this transformation. In her 50s, she was constantly racing against time, always aware of its scarcity. Now, time feels abundant, but also precious, in a way she couldn't grasp when younger. She can sit by my window watching clouds for an hour, experiencing it as both brief and eternal simultaneously. This changes everything about how and with whom she chooses to spend her days. Research from neuroscience confirms this shift. Studies show that time perception physically changes in the aging brain, with the psychological present expanding from 2 to 3 seconds in middle age to 5 to 7 seconds after 70. This neurological change creates a natural capacity for deeper presence, making momentary experiences richer, while reducing the compulsive need for constant stimulation and social interaction. Throughout most of adulthood, we experience time as linear and scarce, pushing us toward constant productivity and social engagement to make the most of limited time. After 70, many begin to experience time as cyclical and abundant, a perspective long held by contemplative traditions. This transformation in time perception creates a natural shift away from quantity-focused experiences, many friendships, frequent gatherings, toward quality-focused experiences, deep connection, meaningful solitude. What appears to others as social withdrawal is often the natural result of finally experiencing time as the ancient philosophers described it, not as a commodity to be spent, but as a medium to be fully inhabited. This profound shift from seeing time as something to use to seeing it as something to inhabit fundamentally transforms our relationship with both solitude and social connection. If you've noticed your perception of time changing as you've grown older, share your experience in the comments below. Your insights might help others recognize and embrace this powerful transformation in their own lives. As we conclude our exploration of why after 70, the need for friendship evolves and independence becomes a pathway to joy. Let's revisit the 7 profound principles we've discovered. Your energy becomes too valuable to waste on shallow connections. You finally understand what truly matters in life. You experience liberation from social expectations. You discover the sacred power of solitude. You find your authentic voice after decades of adaptation. You embrace the freedom from maintaining appearances. And you transcend ordinary perception of time to experience moments more deeply and fully. These 7 principles reveal a profound truth. What our youth-obsessed culture labels as withdrawal is actually evolution. What appears as decline is often ascension to a higher stage of development. If you find yourself desiring more solitude, becoming more selective about social engagements, or feeling less sustained by relationships that once seemed essential, embrace this natural transformation. You're not experiencing a problem to be fixed, but participating in an ancient and natural evolution of the human spirit. The invitation of life after 70 isn't to cling to the social patterns of earlier decades, but to courageously step into your role as an elder. Thank you for spending this time with me. If these insights resonated with your own experience, please like this video and share it with someone who may need to hear this. Subscribe to the channel for more reflections that honor the depth and dignity of aging, and tap the notification bell so you never miss what's next. And if you're over 60 and navigating this stage of life without family support, don't miss my video, Over 60 with No Family. These 5 support pillars saved my retirement life. You can find the link in the video description below.